All right, welcome everybody. I'm Stephen Boswell here, the Chief Operating Officer at the Oxley Institute, and thanks for joining us here for Elite Financial Teams. If you're part of this, you participated in our recent research project. We very much appreciate your effort there, and we're glad to have you here for this Elite Teams presentation. When it comes to Elite Teams, we know many of you who signed up for this call obviously are on teams, and you come onto this call because you want to learn a little bit more about what some of the better teams are doing with regards to communication, with regards to servicing their clients, with regards to growth. And you're going to take away some of that from us today. Also, we know some of you come in as solo practitioners and you're considering forming a team or joining a team. And I think you'll find some information that's helpful in that regard today, even though we are not going to specifically address why you should or should not join. I think you'll notice by way of how we talk about important features of teams as to whether or not you'd want to join or form or not. So that's what we're up to today. We're going to dive through first talking about a little bit of the journey I had this past year with visiting some of the top teams in the industry. I'm not going to bore you at length with all of the travels. You can see by the dots on the map. I was all over the place, visiting with some of the bigger teams in the industry, studying their best practices, offering any insights I could. And what I take away from a trip like that, other than some serious frequent flyer miles and some hassles in a few airports, was that there's a lot of ways to get there. There were plenty of commonalities with these groups. As you sit across the table from these people, they're super professional. They spend a lot of time, trying to figure out better ways to service clients and better ways to grow. They are, early adopters of most of the technology that's out there, whether it's social media or financial planning tools and whatnot. But there's a lot of differences as well. I started to catalog some of the best practices that we gathered from teams like this and just mapped a few of them here for you all to see. Whether it was the team that spent literally $120,000 on a video conferencing room because they had been doing so much of the video conferencing with clients, they wanted it to be top notch. We had, I'm just looking through some of these, the $1 billion under management team that had 9, when I say senior rainmakers, I mean there were 9 guys there who were 80 years old or older going out and looking for new clients. You don't see that all the time. There was a team that had 10 times growth in 7 years by going after CPAs and attorneys. We had a team that closed every Wednesday afternoon for practice building. And they told clients every Wednesday we're closing down shop, not because we get out of here and go skiing, but because we sit down and we think about what we're doing, getting outside of the day-to-day and thinking literally about what we're doing to help service you. Now, these are all kind of the unique examples out of some of the travels there. We like to take some of this and put it into models. I know you've all heard about the difference between vertical and horizontal teams in years past. In the teams research we do, we like to split up, which ones are the elite teams. Almost 60% of the elite teams were vertical. Part of the reasoning there is vertical teams are a little simpler. You've got one team leader. Everybody reports up to the team leader. Typically in these elite teams, the team leader is a supreme rainmaker. They're, among other things, very good at bringing in new business. And it's a very straightforward model, and that's why it works, in a hierarchy. The horizontal teams, there's fewer horizontal teams that are elite. 32% of elite are horizontal. It's a little bit more of a challenge. A lot of the horizontal teams that are out there are plenty of great ones, but there are many that formed out of convenience. We're going to come together and we'll have a larger pool of assets if we're working together. I'll cover you while you're on vacation, you cover me. Our firm really wants us to go into forming teams. Why don't we get together? And there's a lot of ill-formed horizontal teams out there. They're a challenge. Working well, it can be an awesome model because you've got various partners contributing different skill sets. But it takes a lot of effort with some of the things we're going to walk through today with regards to team meetings and communication and delegation and roles. And it's an ongoing process, whether it's your first year together or your 25th year together. A lot of those conversations have to take place. We like to put things into models to help illustrate. I mentioned there's a lot of differences. Here's the commonalities. Good teams have team leadership that sets the foundation for everything. The core of this model you see here is growth. with business development match with client loyalty. They're treating current clients well as a means to finding new clients. Now, we often take this model and do 2 hours of a presentation. I did this a couple weeks ago. We've done 2 days worth of a presentation on this model. We don't have that much time today. We know you're all busy on a work day. So I'm going to give you essentially one tip per each of the 5 pieces of this model. And I think that'll be enough for today just to get you started and being off to a good start here in 2016. Okay, so with practice management, we know there are 2 ends of the spectrum. You have some teams who have no practice management in place. They've got no service models. They've got no segmentation. They don't meet as a team, and it hinders their service. They're winging it. And it hinders their marketing because they've got things so disorganized within their business, they don't have time to get out and grow their business, right? So on the other end of that spectrum, you've got teams who have systems and procedures for their systems and procedures. I worked with a team a while back that literally had a policy in place that they would triple proof any email that was going out to a client. Now, I'm all for getting things right, but if you triple proof every email that goes out of your office, you're not getting a lot done. And that was the case for this team. So we want to be somewhere in the middle. You want to run the business like it's a legitimate business, which it is, but not go overboard. We think these 3 things on your screen here, the team meetings, the offsites, and the reviews, are 3 of the most important. We call it the communication fundamentals within a team. And again, if you're on a large team, these absolutely make sense. If you're with one assistant or even a shared assistant, I'd like you to give some thought to how all these apply to you as well, because there are plenty of folks with a shared assistant who are still holding an offsite retreat, although in a very different way, and who are still hosting team meetings, albeit in a much more intimate setting. There's just 2 of you, and they're still hosting individual performance reviews. So this applies regardless of the size of your team. When it comes to team meetings, we find a lot of teams stop meeting because the meetings get stale, they're repetitive. One team member might go off on a tangent for a while, and everybody else gets tired of hearing it. And so you miss one meeting, that turns into 2 or 3. Before you know it, team meetings were something we used to do, and we don't do them anymore. Most teams that we find, the elite teams, they meet once a week, and they have a written agenda that they follow. And the written agenda is built to help you remember things that you ought to be doing week to week, right? If you have on your team meeting agenda the idea of surprise and delight, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute, small gifts, right? If you talk about that every week and you say those words, surprise and delight, do you think as a team you're going to do more of that behavior? Sure. Otherwise, it's going to be embarrassing that you're coming and reading the same agenda every week and not really taking action. When it comes to team offsite retreats, perfect time of year for that. If you haven't done it already, it's a great time to get out of the office, visit with your team on a personal side of things. We've seen people do it at the bowling alley as a team building first. We've seen people go on a rock climbing wall first and then get into the team business. There's a lot of ways to mix in fun with this, but then you get into a discussion that's broader than the day-to-day of, did you complete XYZ action step for this client? It's a broader discussion of what are our goals? What are some of the things that we're going to be working on this year? In what ways are each team member going to raise the bar? In what ways are we all going to improve going into the next year? And individual performance reviews, I know many of you are cringing when you hear that word. We find them invaluable. They're not supposed to be a hammer for performance where everybody dreads them, you and the support person. These are supposed to be a good back and forth where you get to air anything that's either bothering you or that needs recognition, and vice versa. The support person gets to air anything that's maybe bothering him or her, and offer up some ideas. They're on the front lines. When it comes to business development, one thing I want to hit on is the intimate client event, because this one done properly is a real team effort. And you've all heard this concept before. Years ago when we first started talking about it, it was kind of like, what is that now? But now you've all seen these. You've probably done these. And the difference, the 40 teams I mentioned that I went out and visited, if they did intimate events, they were done in a highly structured fashion, even though they still seemed like just a fun little wine tasting or a fun little, we're going to learn how to, pot plants with a master gardener, fun little events. there was a lot of structure into the pre-work and the follow-up with the advisor and the team. So as a team commitment here, you're prepping and profiling. You're knowing who's going to be there. What are you going to talk to them about? Which team member is taking responsibility for which client, making sure they're not left alone. At the event, you're delegating who circulates with which clients, who's checking people in at the door and making sure everybody's greeted by name and in a very friendly tone. And in follow-up, how quickly can we get together afterwards to plan how we're going to be reaching out to each client, guest, and center of influence to keep the momentum alive from the event? Now, most people obviously they don't put a lot of thought into these things. They plan the event. They've got great wines lined up and great cheese, let's say, but the idea of preparing for conversation or following up quickly thereafterwards are lost. So as a team, we think it's really important to put that planning in, and this is what ends up making clients, number one, really value coming to these things, but number two, making sure they're bringing guests that add to your pipeline. So from a business development perspective, one thing you do as a team that can have big impact in 2016. When we talk about client loyalty, a lot we could cover here. Some of the research we're getting back right now, some of our newest 2016 research is really diving into the idea of how do you get social with clients, because our studies for now 4 years running have shown that getting social with clients improves the business outcomes. They rate you higher in every category. They provide you more referrals and introductions. They're more loyal to your business. There's so many benefits to getting social. Small gifts, surprise and delight, giving introductions, being a giver in general raises the relationship bar. Now, when you see the little map on the right-hand side here, basically the point we're trying to make with that funny, simple little drawing here is that don't just think about being a giver to your clients, be a giver to everybody in their spheres of influence as well. If they've got a kid in the job market, try to help their kid find work. If they've got parents who need help getting organized or finding the right care facility, you're a person who's perfectly suited to pitch in. So, as you look down this list here, in what ways can you be a giver? Whether it be in helping people find work and contributing to their charitable causes and sending a thoughtful gift because somebody just had a new grandchild or their team just won in the playoffs, whatever it is, showing people that you're thinking about them and that you care. This, again, a team effort. If you just go it alone as an advisor sending these things, or if you just delegate it to one of your key support persons, this is not going to get nearly as much traction as if every week you're talking about this in your team meetings and throughout the week. When it comes to wealth management, we want to talk about NEXTGEN. There's been a lot of hype, a lot of buzz talking about NEXTGEN, but we find within the ranks of advisors, there's not as much action taking place as there should be. When you see some of the stats here, 51%, this is from our research in this past year, said that they think their children are going to have $1 million or more investable. 51%. And this is from a group that only had to have $250,000 or more investable to participate in this project. So many of them think their children are going to be better off than they are. Only 22% of those with $1 million or more investable has said their advisor has shown interest in working with their children. So, we look at this in two different ways. What you're seeing, the data points on this slide suggest there's a real opportunity to go through your existing clients to meet their children and for them to be ultimately your clients. On the flip side of this, there's a real opportunity right now, if your client's children aren't of an age that they can provide meaningful business to your group, going after NEXTGEN in the community is an immediate opportunity. There are people in absolutely, I won't say most communities out there who are younger, who are going to be adding to their accounts and who'd make a good client for you right now. They don't just all of a sudden find you on social media and call you, even though that is a growing trend. These are people that you still have to go out and actively prospect. You just have to make sure if you're going after NEXTGEN that your marketing plan is designed for NEXTGEN, that your deliverables are designed for NEXTGEN. If you know they value online access and apps, make sure you've got a great handle on how that works within your business. If you know from a marketing perspective, they congregate in certain areas. They donate their time and money to certain causes. These are places you want to get involved in an effort to go younger with your business, knowing that the trend is obviously the opposite in our industry. And one of the biggest things we can impress upon team leaders is leading by example. When you go into many branch offices nowadays, you meet advisors who've worked extremely hard in their early years, and they earned that corner office status. They did a lot of hard work, and they still, provide a very valuable service to their clients, but they don't have the same work ethic as they used to. They may not have the same commitment to getting better as a professional that they once did. And so these are 6 of the areas where we think leading by example, core values. Are you ethical and honest in every one of your interactions because your team sees this? Are you, from a rainmaking perspective, are you out there actively shaking the trees and trying to find new business? From a communication standpoint, are you relying less on email between the team and going up and talking to people personally within your team? With a client-centric focus, or are you putting in the extra mile for some of your better clients, even when you could do things a little bit easier, maybe another way? Professional development. What are you right now? What are you reading? What are you learning about? And that's contagious within the team. And lastly, with problem solving, it all starts with you. So these are things we lead by example. Other people take our lead. If you show up late, you leave early. If you don't have a commitment to learning, if you don't have a passion for the business, it's hard for other people to follow suit. So a few tips again today. If you like that, Matt wrote a book on elite financial teams. I'd welcome you to pick that up. But more importantly, we've got a number of programs rolling this year. Our performance coaching continues to be the industry leader. We put a tremendous amount of time and energy into making sure we talk about it literally every day. How do we make that program better? And it's paying off. We've got great coaches. We've got great material. And it's a process that's been refined to a point that it will help you grow, whether it's individually for business development, or whether it's as a team. We do a lot of coaching in both fields. Our live workshop, we've got the Affluent Marketing Symposium February 4th and 5th coming up in La Jolla. It's going to be nice and warm. I'll be there. Kevin will be there. Matt will be there. So do tune in. Come join us there live in San Diego area. And lastly, our upcoming webinar series. We've doubled or tripled down, let's say, this year on webinar series. We find the virtual learning to be really effective. It's easy for everybody to simply log in for some of these series. So we've got some for new advisors, some on technology platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook. We've got a couple of great new ones on referral alliances and elite teams. And a classic Matt's going to start here in March based on the success of the art of selling to the affluent. So a lot to tune into. Thank you for signing up and joining us for today. I mentioned in the comment section here that we will be sending out a recording. It'll come out tomorrow after all this series is done. So thanks all. Hope you have a great week and hope this was valuable for everyone.